Hello, everybody. This is Ollie Bilson, and welcome to another episode of Path to Purchase. And of course, I am with my co-host, Mr. Tom Breeze. Hello, Tom.
Hey, Ollie. How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
It's a very professional intro to the podcast.
Absolutely. I don't know what came over me, to be honest with you. I just felt all relaxed, and then it all just flowed beautifully, like a Cadbury's caramel chocolate bar. No.
Wow, we are really going there. Okay, great.
I know there's a certain bit of alliteration I was looking for, which turned out I kind of nailed it, really, if I do say so myself.
Perfect.
Of course, like American listeners are a bit like Cadbury's. Do they even
Hershey's.
have that? Hershey's over there, right?
Hershey's hot. Oh, I was trying to think of it more alliteration.
Hot and horny? Hot and horny. No, that's a different problem. That's a different problem. Everybody stand down. I've gone too far again.
I love how we started off well for this podcast, and we've probably kind of taken that to a whole. Yeah, exactly. Crash and burn straight away. All right. Well, we never hit the re-record button here, so that's great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody knows that we're totally authentic that way. So, well, let's bring us back in line. Let's get down to business. I am quite excited actually because you're going to share with us the not necessarily the scripting formula, but certainly give us a bit of insight into the thought process, the framework behind actually putting together an effective video script. But what's quite interesting is, and the reason why I'm quite excited about it is because this can actually apply to even writing an ad and possibly even writing an email as well. So if you ever stuck thinking about what do I put in my Facebook ad, or if I'm putting together a video of some sort, how do I kind of put all this stuff together, put it in some sort of order that makes sense, that's actually going to get results, then that's what we're going to talk about. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And this will be something that I've kind of been thinking about for a long, long time. I've been doing loads of scripts for many years now, not just for YouTube video ads, but for some Facebook video ads, for website videos and things. And recently, the reason I want to talk about this is because recently I've been rereading lots of books that I used to kind of read a lot. Things like Made to Stick by Dan and Chip Heath. That's brilliant. Contagious by Jonah Berger. It's a really good one for me as well. Recently, StoryBrand, or Donald Miller, has brought out his StoryBrand book, which has been really good as well. I've got so I downloaded some of the masterclasses as well from Aaron Sorkin. That was really interesting. So a lot of Hollywood productions and how they put scripts for movies together, and so that's been really insightful to see it from another perspective as well. But the beauty of this is that I get to do a couple of things. So one thing is I get to kind of research through other people's means like this, like with books and things. But then the other thing I get to do is actually put my own scripts together for clients. They say those scripts, and then I get to see what the results are. So I can split test loads of different things. And it's so surprising the number of things that have apparently been researched in science. And we go and test it, and we find every single time we've disproved that, but that's fine. And so we find all this information all the time. And so I wanted to share a little bit high-level scripting ideas about what tends to work really well. And there are lots of different types of ads. And the analogy we normally use is if you go to a restaurant, it's not simply the food that's delivered that makes it the restaurant that it is. Lots and lots of people can create amazing food and kind of deliver you or kind of give you an amazing meal. But when it comes to a restaurant, it's everything that comes around that as well. So it comes down to how it's served, the user experience, how you're kind of treated as a customer of that restaurant as well. And that is the same way as we think about YouTube advertising as well. It's not just getting the script perfect. It's also about the delivery of that. When are they seeing that ad? How are they seeing that ad? Was there anything before that ad that they've seen about you as a brand? Is there anything they're going to see afterwards as well? And that will influence how you do things. We do things with choose your own adventure ads, where you can allow the user to not necessarily click straight to the website, but instead continue the journey on YouTube. We do things we sometimes use bumper ads, 6-second ads, to then follow up with more of a content-based ad, and then a remarketing ad. We sometimes do much longer ads, 5 minutes in length, where it's just lots and lots of education in the marketplace as well. So there's lots of different types of ads, but I wanted to kind of focus in on that 90-second 90-second script that is like your default. Use this when you first get started because it will give you the best result when you're first getting started. And then once you start getting the data, you can start to see what other forms of ads might work really well for your business. So when we look at kind of creating a kind of a 90-second script for a video, what we tend to do to begin with is identify a few things. So first of all, make it all customer centric. So think really about your customer. What are they looking for? What do they actually want? It's not always easy to identify that from the beginning, but things like even things like Tony Robbins' 6 deepest needs, we kind of look at that quite a lot of the time, like to say, really, what do people actually want? What do they want to achieve? It's not just always money. In a business setting, some people feel like it's just always return on investment. But I know a lot of clients come to us, sure, they want to get that, but really they want it so they can build their brand and they can be seen and get recognized and they're going to grow their brands that way as well. But obviously, along the way, they want to make sure they're getting rich at the same time. So there's kind of like a dual edge to it. But it depends on your customers and what they're looking for. Is it a sense of accomplishment? Is it, I mean, the 6 deepest needs is always a good one, but like significance can pull a big play into it. And that certainty as well is always important. Like they want to know that they're actually going to get this time. So understanding exactly what your customer wants from the very beginning. And then that really does form the core message to be like, that's what we're going to be delivering on. Like when we look at any scripts that we write them to begin with, and we normally always get them down to half of what they were previously when we first wrote them. So we write them and then realize that we could, if it was like a whole page of A4, let's say, we could easily cut that in half with just a little bit of editing. And so it kind of like when you're creating your script, it's going to be a lot of editing that kind of gets rid of all the stuff that doesn't have a huge impact on just that core message. Like there's so many things you could say about your business or about your products that are really great, but it's choosing and prioritizing on a message in particular. So, and that's always going to start with what the customer's looking for. What are they genuinely wanting? And so if you can identify that from the very beginning, that's great. And then what we do, as soon as we work out what that one thing is that the customer wants, we then work out what's stopping them from having it. Something that reminded me recently was the book by Donald Miller with StoryBrand, is that there's 3 things that people tend to kind of like focus on that they want, but like, and this can be things that get in the way. Like it's normally either an external thing, so something that's like they perceive something out there in the marketplace as stopping them from achieving what they actually want to achieve. It could be an internal thing, like a belief thing, or it could even be like something around more of a philosophical play there that's kind of like stopping them and it's annoying them from a bigger picture perspective as well. Like something's impacting them in a way that's it's just not right. It's not the way it should be. So like Trump right now, for a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, but for a lot of people, they feel like a lot of anger can be put his way because he's doing so many different things that are rubbing people up the wrong way from a philosophical standpoint. It might not impact them directly, but it's like there's a bigger thing at play when it comes to like the political arena. So it's identifying what those problems are, which is the next thing, what are those things that are getting in the way. So we tend to look at it as like, what's the objective from the very beginning? What does someone want to achieve? And then what's their what's their objective? And then what's also the obstacle that's in the way as well. So there's 2 O's, like the obstacle, so the objective and obstacle, and try and marry those up in terms of what is it that's stopping this thing from happening that they really want to achieve, and trying to get that across in the video as quickly as possible. Because as soon as you set that stall out, people are then involved in some level of storytelling. So it's like, you want this, but this is in the way. And it's like, great, okay, cool, you've set the scene really at that point. The trick we are finding that's working really well with the obstacle is to, and there's a reason why we call it obstacle, is because we want to make it feel like for somebody it is actually like almost a physical concept. It's something that you can point at and say, because of that reason, I'm not achieving the results. So it's not like an emotion, or it's trying to pinpoint it to something that says, oh, if I just could sort out that problem, I would have this fixed. If I could just get rid of that demon or that problem, that'd be great. And we were just chatting about it in the team just earlier today, and it's a bit like in a movie you would have like the bomb would be that thing. The bomb represents all the problems you have internally, externally, philosophically. It kind of wraps up everything together, and there's maybe a bigger reason for that bomb existing in the first place, but it is that bomb that's kind of like, that's the thing that is stopping me from achieving what I want to achieve, right? So it's like trying to either personalize it or make it like an object that we can kind of point at and say, that's because of that, I'm stuck, so to speak. I can't get the result I want to get. And if you start that, like that, if you have those two things, like that core message of what the client or the potential customer wants, and then this other kind of like object that's stopping them from happening, you're going to be creating a really strong script at that point. As long as it's easy to illustrate via script, as long as it's easy to explain to someone and someone says, yeah, I kind of get it straight away. If you can do that, you're onto an absolute winner. And that's kind of what we spend most of our time with. That's like the creative part. That's the difficult part, is trying to identify what the problem is and trying to personalize it in a way that someone actually gets it immediately. But if you can do that, you're off to a winner. Then what we try and do, or not what we try and do, but what we actually do, is to position you then as like as the person that can help the customer in that scenario. And you do that by showing them that you have some sort of plan in place. Like I have a method for tackling this. And this kind of comes back to a bit of NLP, I suppose, but it's any good communication really. You're saying, why would you be interested? What do I have for you? And how does it work? And now what's next really? So the why we've covered with like, what is someone looking for? Great, we've got that. And also there's a problem in place. The what and how comes down to like, all right, well, what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? So at that point, you have to tell people that you've got a plan, you've got a method in place, you have something that's going to actually genuinely help them. And then you want to kind of probably build up the credibility behind that as well, to say, hey, look, this has helped thousands of people before, by the way. So what I'm about to show you is going to be really, really handy. And then we want to try and make that plan seem like a model of some sort, seem like, okay, cool, I can follow that along easily. So it'd be like a 3-step process or a 4-step formula or anything like that. So it just feels like, cool, this is easy to get. And it's kind of still at quite a high level. And so it'd be like a 3-step thing, maybe, is always a kind of good thing. As soon as you see 3 steps, it's an easy thing to picture. And as soon as you have like that, like what feels like a plan to the customer, they're buying into it at that point. So they're like, great, this has helped lots of other people before. I kind of see it and get it. And I can understand, I can immediately see how that 3-step formula is going to solve the problem of that bomb I've got. And immediately as they've got that, that plan is then all you need to do is just give a quick demonstration of it in action, so to speak, to say, all right, let's just show you how this would work in this scenario then. And that can be a real case study. It can be just another kind of example of a story or something along those lines. So it's like, here's how this is going to work, basically. And so someone can just like picture their own business or their own problem being solved as well, so to speak. So it's like, if you do have a before and after with a customer or a client, and you can show that by using that 3-step process, then someone's going to see that. And I'm talking about like 10-second demonstration, immediately they're going to see it and like, oh my God, yeah, I get it. That's easy. Okay, cool. So they're kind of completely bought into the whole plan at this point, and you have subtly become the mentor or the guide for them. And this is the great thing about it, is it's never about you, like you running your ad. I see lots of people trying to promote themselves using loads and loads of credibility and saying, here's how good I am and here's how great I am. But the viewer doesn't really care. They just want to care that their problem can be solved. And then later on, once they've done it, like, cool, well, how do we get started then? And that's the things, like with any ad that you create, you want to make sure people go, that's so cool, what's next? And at that point, you're moving into the call to action. So you give like that complete clarity of exactly what to do, and almost like, again, give a demonstration of, here's what you're going to do. Step 1, you're going to do this. Step 2, you're going to do this. And step 3, you're going to do this. If you can illustrate that in the actual video as well, all the better, because it's like people just giving like visual instructions, not just auditory, like told what to do. It's like, click this button, then you're going to get to this page and fill in your details here. So it's kind of like you're pacing the future for them as well as they go through that. And then you just want to reiterate as well the benefits of them doing it. And the negatives if they aren't to do it, like what to expect if they do it, what to expect if they don't do it. And again, just a quick sentence was plenty, with another call to action at the end, just like a reminder call to action at the end. And that really is how to script things, but like it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And so once you've written out this script that might be, let's say, 60 seconds in length or so, it might come out as like 3 or 4 minutes when you first do it, but you can just edit it down and just cut away anything that doesn't kind of like just move the story along quickly, without kind of like making it too jumpy, so to speak. So you want to make sure that each part leads into each other. But I mean, if you're able to do that and just keep it streamlined and just focus on getting the viewer to go from point A to point B in the slickest way possible, then it just makes the whole journey so much easier. But as you quite rightly say, Ollie, that messaging there doesn't just lend itself to a YouTube ad. It lends itself to all other forms of advertising as well. But if you get a story right and people can demonize that problem as like a bomb, for example, then you can even, if you've personalized it or made it into an object, you can even use that as a visual asset for a lot of other things you talk about, because people will get it quickly. And then when they see it again in an image ad or anything like that, or in an email or anything that you might be able to show to people, again, that story continues. If they haven't yet taken action, they're going to still be picturing that bomb in their head, so to speak, like, oh my God, I've still got this problem. And you've been associated now as the guide that can help them through that. So they're never going to forget it. We try and also use something we read in Jonah Berger's book, which is like, I think it's a top of mind, tip of tongue, which is like the idea that if you can associate something they see every day to the same problem, but you've demonized that problem, if you've made it kind of like a thing they can imagine, then every time they experience that same problem, they're going to be immediately anchored to the same kind of like concept you gave them, and therefore the whole story like loops again in their head of like, I really should get in touch with that company because it keeps on coming up in my head. But it's not like, it's like the brand never gets forgotten at that point. So they did it with like they talked about kind of Kit Kat, the chocolate biscuit Kit Kat, and Kit Kat for years used to do in the States it was more have a coffee, have a Kit Kat, but in the UK we've had take a break, have a Kit Kat. But as soon as you get that in your brain loads and loads and loads, and you hear it all the time, then any time that someone says, hey, do you want to take a break? Immediately your brain, part of it's going to trigger have a Kit Kat sort of thing. And so you kind of make that association. But if you can do that again with your advertising, if you can conceptualize that problem so people can imagine them, point fingers at it and say, that's the problem I've got, then every time they experience that problem, they're also going to remember you as a brand that can be someone that can help them out with them. So we try and kind of build that in as much as possible, because it's got the longevity of that message that will play out for all types of marketing message you would have across your website, your emails, and everything else you might be doing as well. So in a very quick tutorial style video ad, that's kind of like how I would look at scripting a YouTube ad. But I'm sure there's things that you would have to add to that, Ollie, as well. I don't know if there's anything that you thought as I was going through that.
There is absolutely nothing that I would add to that. It was like,
Okay.
I was almost like a bystander while like bombs of knowledge were being dropped all over me, leaving me almost salivating at the mouth of, the possibilities of new advertising things that were not taken advantage of. So yeah, it was very eloquently put and very well articulated. What for what is actually, and this is the challenge for a lot of people, is that for what is quite actually complex for some people, and breaking down the complex into a simple framework that actually people can follow. And actually, when you actually think about it and putting it the way that you did, it seems very logical, but actually some people make that to be, there's make it more complex than it may actually be, because you're kind of mirroring and modeling what kind of human behavior and psychology is at those moments that they're seeing these things, and it just makes total sense. But that's great. I think the one thing that I wanted to ask you actually was from the point in which you have this scripted. Maybe, and honestly, I mean, if you're listening to this right now, I'd go to a site called Temi, TMI.com, and I would take the link for the podcast and I would go and have it transcribed. You can get it for free. Like Temi will do is machine learning transcription, right? Go and get it transcribed, or urev.com or whatever. Get it transcribed and go through that framework that Tom's laid out for you there, because it's absolute gold. But once you've done that, Tom, when sometimes people then struggle with the execution of then actually getting that script into an actual video, whether it be a video ad, they're in front of the camera and suddenly they're faced with like, okay, I've got to read this script. Do you find that it's better to do, have it have a professional voiceover with some kind of stock video? Do you prefer it to be more of a talking head video but done with a teleprompter? Do you find that it's better that they do it more almost like a video sales letter? What do you find works best, and why? What's the best route for somebody to take that script and actually go and execute on it?
Yeah, so it's going to be probably the hardest one from a, well, not the hardest from a standpoint of video creation, but the hardest one for a presenter. And that is going to be get on camera. If you can be on camera, all the better. You don't have to speak down the barrel of the lens all the time. So you can, if you wanted to, especially on a website video, you could almost have it. Say, for example, you're in an interview scenario and someone happened to ask you the questions in the same way to elicit that script from you, you could easily do that. So you could almost like look slightly off camera, just a little bit off camera, and just walk it through as if you're talking to somebody else and walking them through it. So instead of like saying, hey, you, Mr. Viewer, this, I'm talking to you right now, instead of doing it like that, you're saying to the Mr. Interviewer, you're looking slightly off camera and you're saying, okay, so I think what most people want to achieve these days is this, this, and this. And that's kind of like your starting point. And the problem is they're finding that this, and then you demonize that problem. That's the issue right now, right? So you'll make it much more conversational at that point. And so you can look off camera. That might make it a lot easier for people because then it feels like you're not having to be a presenter, but instead you're just talking about like this script to somebody else. And that can just free you up a little bit to not have to act, but you're just talking to someone then. And I'll actually genuinely get someone in a chair looking at you, talking it through, and just film you from the side, so to speak. Because if you do that, you can still make it look really eloquent, or elegant, sorry, and you can come across in a very eloquent way. But I mean, that can sometimes take the pressure off of having to speak directly to the camera. But that said, I would still try and be on camera. And the reason being is because, especially if you're talking directly to camera as well, you can have such a big impact there. And people remember people. And when you have an ad with a person in it, people will just remember that as a part of the branding as well. So the next time they see it, face is very, very easy to recognize again. It's very unusual for us to see a face and then completely forget it, especially if you've spent like a minute looking at a video sort of thing. And so as soon as you get to see that person, we attribute kind of a lot of connection to that person. And the chance of things like remarketing, or when someone goes to the website and that continuation, that same person is again on the website again, then it feels like, okay, cool, I can continue this journey with this brand. It's very difficult to do that with a logo quickly. I always move away from VSL because I just feel like it's not a lazy video, but I just feel like it could be done so much better because it'd be so much more powerful. And so, sure, you could probably get great conversion results from a VSL if you could have like got that script perfect.
I think it's in a different moment, isn't it? Like if you are using something like that, you know, it needs to be in the context of the best moment to use it in. I think we're talking about ads here, which is different, right? The question we get asked a lot is, should you use a teleprompter? Should you, even if you're talking off camera, should that be through a teleprompter? What should it be? And the other question is when you actually tell them to go and do something, like click something, should that be also off camera, or should it be cut, and should it then be straight down the barrel when you're actually telling them to actually go and do something?
Okay, good question. So when it comes to the presenting, if someone is a new presenter and they're using auto cue, the problem you have there is that they'll look like they're reading it, and they can even sound like they're reading it as well. So they're not using it as a prompt any longer, which is hence like the word teleprompter should give the clue away. It's not tele-reading, it's teleprompter. But like, so it's more a case of like the words are coming up, and it's, if you've been trained to be good at teleprompting, then fine, use that. I'm good with that, because then you can really nail your scripts. I mean, I've done it over and over and again. I haven't necessarily been trained. I've just done it so many times that I know not to let my eyes flicker, and it's in my peripheral vision. But then it's still, then it might take me like 40 takes to get the video ad right, so to speak. So don't feel like you have to get it right the first time, and also break it up. So just get the first bit nailed, absolutely perfect, and then get the second bit nailed, and then get the third bit nailed. You can always stitch it together with editing, because you're going to be you're doing jump cuts anyway with editing, just to keep the eyes fresh. So don't have to worry too much about getting it perfect all in one take. But if people are dead keen on using a teleprompter, sure, go for it. It can be an asset, but just don't make it look a wooden performance by just saying the right words. Because again, it's about the energy behind those words that are really, really important. I would say you can, but I often say to people, look, learn the lines, get really comfortable with it. You don't have to say it exactly as it is on the script when it comes to the actual video day. But if you learn, it's almost like if you're giving a best man speech at a wedding. I think, do the States call it a best man?
I've no idea. I have
Okay.
no idea.
It's your best buddy who speaks at your wedding,
Wedding.
best
Yeah.
mate of a groom sort of thing. So best man, and probably is best man. But so it's that sort of speech where you would have practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced to the point at which even on the day you're going to be presenting and like you're going to be comfortable enough to go with the crowd. If they're laughing for ages, you can like take a bit of a break and then deliver the line again. And it's like, you'll know that kind of like that timing can work a lot better. So it's a bit like that. Learn it so well, or not necessarily have to learn it, but get so familiar with it that when you say it to camera, it just flows and it feels comfortable and you're not trying to remember the words each time. It's more a case of there's a prompt there, great, that'll help you. And at the same time, you're just feeling comfortable with the lines. And it's also give the camera more energy than usual. It's amazing how even when you feel like you're being really energetic, it can sometimes when you get the camera back, it just feels a bit flat. So just give it like a level up a little bit. So I always say U+1. So try and present it at a slightly different level. So that helps. And then the second part of that question was about, I can't remember exactly what it was now.
Well, we were just talking really about whether, well, we were talking about prompting, and then we were saying at the point where you're actually going to like tell them to go and do something, if you were looking off camera, is the best thing for you to do to cut away, and at the point where you tell them to do something, actually look down the barrel of the lens at them and tell them what to do? Or is it okay to do it still off camera?
So when we do a script, we have a very special line that we tend to use. It's difficult to get right, but when you get it right, it's perfect. You start the sentence with we, and you end it with you. So you say, so let's give you an example of this. It'll be like, so in order to achieve this, here's what we're going to do. You're going to click this link, do this. And by saying the we're, like people can buy into that a little bit more easily because it's at the point at which you've told them exactly the demonstration of what you're going to show them and a formula that works really well. And then you can say, so here's what we're going to do. And so it's almost like a throwaway comment, but what it allows the viewer to feel like is like, okay, we're going to do this together. And then you've assumed the mentorship role, and then you're going to say to them, okay, here's what you're going to do. So so the viewer feels like, okay, cool, you can I can adopt you as my mentor, and now you're telling me the instructions of what to do next. So that's like what we do. At that point, we'll also normally, as we're giving like super clear instructions, we'll then cut away from someone being on camera and talking any longer, because it's a bit of a sales pitch and we don't necessarily always want the person to be associated with the selling.
It's a bit like a QVC type thing, if people are familiar with that type of, when they go to from demonstration to actually to buy something, they never have the person actually pitching it.
Doing the call to action, yeah, exactly. They might be doing it lightly with like graphics on page, for example, but at that point where they're saying, now go and buy this, or on shopping, teleshopping, it will always be like, call this number, and the presenter's out the picture then at that point. So we like to do a similar thing where it just comes up with like almost like a walkthrough, and you can see someone typing in to a search bar if it was to come up, or clicking buttons and you can see the mouse moving to click it, and like a red little radar will come around the buttons so you can see it click, and the sound of a click would happen. So via a video demonstration, we're letting the viewer see exactly what to do at each stage, so to speak. So you say, you're going to click this button, you're going to land on this page, you fill in your name and email here, and you'll be registered for the webinar, for example. And then like from there on in, you don't have to necessarily show them too much after that. But then you might, if they do get to see the thank you page, which can be sometimes good, you can say, oh, and by the way, you'll see a video on here that's going to show you exactly how to do this. So you can like highlighting there's something else for them to go and get it, and the benefits of doing that as well. But you just want to highlight the benefits of doing what you've just asked them to do. And the 3 words of so you can are always good to add in. So you can almost is a psychological prompt to almost prick up the ears at that point to say, now listen in, so to speak, without saying it. So it's like, oh, and blah, 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 all this information, so you can. It's like, oh, good, that's the benefit to me as a viewer. So the so you can is 3 little words that you'll see it in pretty much every script that we do. And it just kind of brings you as a copywriter or someone who's script writing, brings you back onto remembering to add in the benefits,
Sure.
and then also highlight the negatives if they don't do it as well, and then give them one final call to action at the end.
Love
So
it.
yes, we try and illustrate and give people as such clarity, because remember, people on YouTube are sure they're watching and they're engaged somewhat because they've gone to YouTube to search for something. So it's easier to get their attention than it would be on someone like Facebook, but they're still in that mode of like they're watching something. There's distractions on the right hand side. There's loads of things you could see. There's like you've got loads of options, but we're trying to get that person to focus in on saying, just do this one thing, just do that, like, and that will start the journey to a much better version of yourself or whatever it might be. So you're asking the viewer to do that one thing, and as soon as they do it, cool, you're off the hook almost. But like, leave it so that they must be making sure that they kind of take that first action with you as a brand, and so the clearer you can make it, all the better. There's a book which I'll forget the name of now. But it's a great book about advertising. But it's they call on the fact that there's two things that can help you get more conversions. One is increase the desire, which is what 99% of people do. They say, "Oh, you must love this," because like they're trying to think of the perfect message to be like, "Hey, look, if you achieve this, and this is all your biggest goals, and you're trying to like bring out more and more of that desire, add more scarcity in there, whatever it might be." But what most people forget is just make it damn easy as well. Like,
Right.
the number of times like people just like have this amazing sales pitch and they're not crystal clear on what you want people to do, and just by telling people what to do, it makes like the viewer actually go and do it. You just have to be super clear with your call to action, because if you do that, you'll get much better conversion rates. And all the best messaging in the world is all great, but it's the clarity of the call to action is important.
Love it. Tom, it's been absolutely awesome. And guys, make sure that you either re-listen to this, go and get it transcribed, whatever it is that you need to do to start improving your scripts and using this framework. I'm sure you'll be super successful. So, Tom, thanks again. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Nice one, Oli. Speak to you in a bit.